Live Mike.
Check 1, 2.
With Lee Lonsberry. From Utah's Capitol Hill to your schools, taxes, and all the breaking news. Hear it on Live Mike with Lee Lonsberry on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Live Mike. This week it's with Amy Donaldson and Scott Howell.
Yes.
It's actually not this week. I hesitated because I thought, I'm not taking over for a week. Believe me, you can keep listening to KSL because Lee will be back tomorrow.
Lee, you still have a job.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know.
Well, you still have a station. I don't know about the rest. So it's President's Day, and to celebrate President's Day, we've been reading some quotes from our favorite. They're either our favorite quotes or some presidents that we admire. And I love this one from William McKinley because I feel like this all the time in the last maybe 6 or 7 years in public debate because it's become so toxic and so polarized. So William McKinley, who served from 1897 to 1901, in the darkest defeat, victory may be nearest. So don't give up hope. So there you go. What's yours, Scott?
Well, it's from Herbert Hoover. That's a mouthful to say. And this is really kind of introducing our next guest as well. Be patient and calm. No one can catch a fish with anger. Be patient and calm.
I try to do a lot of things with anger. It reminds me of my first swim lesson where they said, I've never seen anyone be that mad at the water.
But then you took it in and you did great. So
I didn't. I gave up swimming and took up running.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
But I can swim. I can swim from the boat to the the
that's
dock.
what counts.
That's all
that's
I care
what
about.
Counts.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce our next guest?
Angela Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today. What a great organization you have. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your organization, a little bit about what you've been doing, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the program today.
Oh, thank you for having me on. The first thing I do want to say is I do think I owe the Democratic Caucus an apology for the events that happened this past week. So I do want to sincerely apologize for being not sensitive. I can only see that now, right, after the mistake has been made. And so I do sincerely apologize to Representative Hollins and the caucus.
Sure. Well, you know what? Maybe you didn't catch the fish that time, but you can go back and catch the fish next time.
Right.
So and I think we should, to be clear for listeners, like there was an issue that happened in caucus, and we're not going to discuss that right now because I think it's a discussion that maybe you and Representative Hollins should have first. But you were making a presentation on a bill that was decriminalizing polygamy, and that's what you're apologizing for. Is the way you characterized or handled that.
Right,
analogy. Definitely
could have been done differently.
Okay, so can you go ahead now and tell us, like, what was your opposition to this bill? What were you sort of hoping?
So, Sound Choices Coalition, they've been around for, I believe, almost 10 years. And what we mostly do is speak out against the harms of polygamy.
Okay.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that polygamy it's been found to be inherently harmful. And sometimes that's really hard to figure out. Well, where's the justification for that? How can you prove that? Mm-hmm. Because at least in this instance that we have here going on in Utah, the question would be, can you recognize oppression when people are smiling and saying that they agree with it? And is it possible to be oppressed willingly? Is it possible? It's a good question. And it actually is very possible. It's the opposite of using fear to oppress.
What's your connection to polygamy? Like, how did you get interested in this?
Well, I had volunteered with Operation Underground Railroad for a couple of years doing events for them. And I just reached a point where I wanted to do something that was more specific to Utah, that was a unique issue for Utah. Okay. And that's how I got into it.
Because Scott and I were discussing what we were going to debate and discuss on the radio today, and my reaction, I did watch the hearing because I saw it on Twitter. I saw the discussion about the debate about what happened, and so I watched the committee hearing, and separating my feelings from what happened about the bill itself and what it's doing, I think my feeling is that decriminalizing polygamy will actually allow people who are in it's become a criminal endeavor because of the secrecy that surrounds it. I think anytime you have people who feel like they can't go to their local law enforcement or go to a teacher at school, or they're not even in a school, if you don't have if you don't feel like all of the tools of society are available to you because you are living an illegal lifestyle, I feel like that is where that is what breeds that abuse and that sort of the oppression comes from that. What do you think about that?
So I can see how people are coming to that conclusion. However, when you're looking at decriminalizing anything that's been found harmful, right? It's a crime because it's been found harmful. That's not the right question to ask. We wouldn't ask, if it's okay, if consenting adults are all selling heroin and doing heroin, well, maybe if we just decriminalized it, we wouldn't see
there are
the
people
damages.
that argue that.
There are people that would.
Yeah.
There are people that would. And I've read those arguments. What you have to realize about polygamy in particular, and it really doesn't matter if it's religious or not, that there are things in place that they're there intentionally. This fear of government, that's not coming from us.
Yeah.
It's coming from within, and that the reason is to keep them there.
But I think it comes from both, because I've talked to polygamists who like their lifestyle and feel it's their religion and they want that to be respected, but they feel like the government, like they can't tell people at school, they can't. Right. And so I think when you're isolated like that, the only people you do have to go to for help are in your community, and they may not be, like you say, they may not have your best. Their goal is to keep the community together. It's not for your well-being or what's going to be good for you.
Right. But it's not only, you have to look at the whole picture. It's not only that they are distrustful of government, they're also distrustful of everyone out here. So,
and that comes from within. That comes from within.
Yeah, unless you address the issues from within, like these teachings from within, you're not, because what's holding it in place is fear. It's fear. You could argue that some of it is coming from the outside, but a lot of it is coming from the inside.
Well, I look at the Short Creek raid, right? I look at some of the things that have happened that the government has done to polygamous communities, and it so terrifies me.
With the Short Creek raid, if you study it, it really should be called an attempted rescue. They were aware of massive child abuse within that community, and they were trying to rescue those children. They were aware of underage marriages.
See, these are things that I don't know that these have been confirmed because they've never been released, right? And so all I see is people's kids being taken from them based on an anonymous phone call that was never confirmed to be legitimate.
Well, I think the Warren Jeffs and what happened down in Texas confirmed all of that. And my experience was when we had 3 women that broke out and came in my Senate office, and they wouldn't leave until I'd commit to do something for them. And I mean, the horrific sexual episodes that were going on. I'll never forget one of the women said to me, "I'm sick and tired of my 13 and 14-year-old daughters being, quote, broke in." And to me, that just sent it over the top. And I think, Angela, what you're saying, and Amy, what you're saying is a good dialogue, so everybody understands better of what's going on out there.
It's important, I before I got involved in this, I really did have to strip away all of my everything I thought about it before, because I actually think it can be a big problem when you're talking about a social cause. Before I ever knew anything about polygamy at all, I brought my own assumptions into it, which were, I come from a military family, very aware of freedom in this country, and my first thoughts were, we live in a free country, and if they want to live it, let them live it. But when you learn more about it, that's not their perception. Their perception isn't that they live in a free country and that they can do what they want. Their perception is if you're born a woman, you're born a girl, you are going to be a wife.
Yeah.
And so it's these deeper human rights violations that are hard to notice because, frankly, you and I don't see them.
It's not our experience.
It's not our experience.
Yeah.
We don't even have to think about that.
Good point.
Yeah, and we have to go because we're over time again. This is like a habit first. Thank you so much for coming
just
down.
Kind of sum up, Angela. Just take 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I would just encourage people to try to look at this bill. It's not just my opinion that says that this is harmful for society. I'm going off of case, the Canada case, which is the most extensive research ever done on polygamy.
Okay, and we're
going to have you back.
Yeah, you'll have to have me back.
What was the name of the group again?
Sound Choices Coalition.
Sound Choices Coalition. Okay, thank you again. You're listening to Live Mike on KSL News Radio.